All right, our next deal of the month, Sergey actually took part in it, but we're going to have him come up during the questions. But this one is from Maija, who's a brand new investor. Maija Russell, please come on up.
Hello, my name is Maija Russell, and I recently bought and sold my first property. I found my lead off of a probate list. The seller was a college student and out of state, and he inherited a manufactured home from his grandmother in Winter Garden. When I had spoken to the seller, he had already had an asking price of $38,000. After I looked at the property, I did the Mayo, and I offered $17,000, and he accepted. Luckily, I had just met Sergey, and I called him up immediately, and he kind of walked me through the process. And so I wrote up a contract. We got the inspection, Brian Sullivan again, and we noticed that there was a couple more things that we hadn't anticipated. So we asked for $2,000 off of our asking price. My seller wasn't happy about that. He wanted proof of fair market value and an inspection report, as well as to talk to his lawyers. So we emailed him everything that he needed, and he eventually accepted our asking price of $15,000. So I had the titles. After he sent down the titles, I had the titles. I went to the DMV. I literally spent the entire day at the DMV transferring over the titles. We were missing a few pieces of paper, including a death certificate that we didn't realize that we needed. So Sergey was out of town, so I was emailing him. I'm texting the seller who's in class, and eventually, by the end of the day, we got everything together and got the titles transferred. So I had the titles in my hand, and I'm getting away from the DMV, and I'm calling NewView, the company that we used for the lender, and they said, everything sounds good as long as there's a lien on the property or on the titles. And I said, there needs to be a lien on the titles? So I rushed back over to the DMV, and the ladies were so nice about it, and they could have charged me a lot extra to add the lien, but they didn't, so they just voided everything out, and I finally had the titles. So then Sergey made kind of a to-do list of everything that needed to be fixed, and we hired Joy to clean the property. Audrey Bylot staged the property, did a great job, and we had an open house that Sunday. We got an offer at the open house for $28,000. We were asking $34,900. Unfortunately, Sergey had left at that time, so I turned down the offer, and when I called him and told him what had happened, he told me to counter at $31,500. So I did, and then we agreed on $30,000. My sellers were from Canada, and they had a hard time getting the funds transferred into American dollars. So it took them until Thursday night to give me a check, and they were leaving back to Canada on Friday evening.
This is when it gets good, right? Persistence
real fun.
is key.
So at 8 a.m. on Friday, I was at my bank, and I was told that they cannot cash a cashier's check without 24 hours of it clearing. So I told them that I needed this money now because I needed to cut a new check to give to NewView so they could take off the liens and release the titles to me so we could sell the property. So we brainstormed for a good 2 hours, exhausting all of our options, and eventually I went over to Bank of Montreal, which is, luckily there's one in Lake Mary, and I had to open up a bank account over there. I deposited the money, and then I got a new cashier's check for NewView. So I got the titles back from NewView. I rushed down to the DMV where I was meeting Sergey and the buyers, and I noticed that there was a big group in front of the DMV, and the driver next to me said, "Oh, haven't you heard? Somebody died in there earlier today, so they're not going to be open till 1. So
this is all real.
This is all real. I'm definitely not making this up. So I searched the closest DMV, and my buyers arrived, and I asked them if they'd like to follow me to the new DMV, and they said, "Oh no, it's fine. We have a GPS." So I gave them the address, and I met them, or was going to meet them at the DMV. I was in line at the DMV for a good 30 minutes. When I got to the front, they said, "Oh no, we don't do mobile home transfers here." And my buyers were nowhere to be seen. It had been 30 minutes. It took me only 10 minutes to get there. So I called them up. I said, "Where are you?" They said, "We have no idea." So since it was 15 minutes to 1 at the time, I told them just to meet back at the other DMV. And we went there. It was a very tense situation. My buyers were nervous that they were going to miss their plane. But eventually we got the titles transferred, and Sergey and I netted a little over $11,000.
Wonderful. You guys have questions? Sergey, go on up if anybody wants to ask questions related to this. Sergey helped her out with this deal.
Any questions?
No questions?
A probate list. Oh, I'm sorry, buyer. Yes. We advertised the open house on MH Village, Craigslist, and around the neighborhood. They found out, I think, through Craigslist.
The question is it in a park or on land?
It was in a park. I was instructed to drive around the park. Any place that has for sale or for rent signs, you call them up and you ask what they're offering.
But you check someplace else too, I think you told me as well, right?
A couple other parks, right?
Yeah, we checked the parks and we also did fair market value, but that's
Oh yeah, the NADA book value.
for the seller or for the bank. You never go by that.
Roger.
This a question for both of y'all. How do you figure a good place from a park standpoint if you're going to do it in a park? I mean, other than the obvious, things if there's people standing around trying to sell you drugs, but how do you tell a good park from a bad park? I mean, if you're going to go looking for mobile home parks to do this kind of investing in, I mean, what do you look for?
What I recommend, just go to 10 parks and you will see the difference between them. And just decide, do you want your grandma live here by herself? Pretty much kind of deal. So you can see the cars, on jacks and...
Research, it's just getting on the ground and going out there and looking for yourself.
Yes.
Okay. I mean, because there's a bunch of mobile home parks in the Central Florida area, I mean, is there any way you would narrow it down to know which 10 you were going to go look at?
Yeah, I would suggest start with all age parks, because this one was all age park and I did the 55 and older. It's harder to sell 55 and older. But also just go there and, see it for yourself. Is that something you would like to live in or not? Roger.
Because it was a secured loan. So to secure it, it needed to be on the titles.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I'm going to go. Oh, one more question. Yes.
It was private money.
From somebody's IRA, by the way.
Yes. New View was great.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Congratulations on your first deal.